Let not your hearts be troubled, but let God lead us where our hearts need to go. Each of us has a unique soul blueprint imprinted indelibly in ourselves. Our soul blueprint holds the key to our happiness. Activating it is the key to living self expressed, authentic, and joyful lives. We tend to think of our soul as disembodied, independent of us. We conceive of our physical body as belonging to this world and our soul as something apart. Far from this, our soul is woven into the very fabric of our being, and the two are inextricably intertwined. It is the non-physical that breathes life into the physical. Our physical body is infused with the energy of our soul, and we are in constant communication, interaction with it throughout the day, whether we know it or not. Our soul can never be apart from us. It is the essence of who we are. What defines whether we are activating our soul blueprint or not is how closely we are listening to the communications of our soul and living into alignment with them. Our soul is speaking to us all the time. It speaks to us through our emotions and intuition. It speaks to us in the silence of our heart space. It speaks to us in our passions and enthusiasms. It speaks to us in the words of others, or the words of a book, a movie, or a song. When we learn to listen to the voice of our soul within us, we are able to step into a truly authentic way of living, a way of living that honors us and who we are, a way of living that nurtures and expresses the essence of who we came here to be. Our soul speaks to us in each and every moment. It speaks to us when we feel unenthused, uncomfortable, compromised, fatigued, disinterested, telling us that the course we have embarked upon is not in alignment with our soul. It speaks to us in the vague unease or the murmurs of discontent that we so often ignore and brush aside. Excuse me. It speaks to us in our feeling of malaise, in our longing for something more. It speaks to us in the whispers of desire that we feel in our heart to choose one thing over another, one experience over another. It speaks to us in moments of happiness, joy, pleasure, gratitude, love, appreciation, telling us that yes, in this moment, we've got it. We're living in alignment with this essence of who we are. When we live in alignment with our soul, we become the happiest, most authentic, most joyful version of ourselves, expressing the essence of who we really are in the innermost part of our being. By choosing to release from our life the things that sends us into negative emotion, by choosing to spend more time on doing things that cause us to feel gratitude and joy, we can bring ourselves into greater alignment with our soul. As we do, we transform our life. We experience blissful moments of deep connection to ourselves and the world around us. We experience the joy of living true to ourselves. We begin to live more in the moment, trusting in our soul to lead us and the goodness of the universe to provide. We value the sacredness of all life, including our own, and begin to honor the truth of who we are and live on purpose. The more we come into alignment with our soul, the more we open ourselves up to a radiant joy in life and the living of it. Although we are taught to listen and value the opinions of everyone but ourselves, our own inner voice, our soul, is the only one that can guide us true to course in our quest for happiness, fulfillment, and joy. As we listen to the song of our own heart and deepen into a more intimate relationship with our soul reminds us of who we came here to be, speaking to us in moments of silence and stillness. It whispers to us our highest and grandest vision of who we could be. It gives us a vision of how we might use our specific gifts and talents, the wisdom garnered from our experiences, to serve the whole and share our light in the world, giving us a beautiful vision of what our life could look like if we surrendered to its call and chose to live our life in conscious alignment with our soul, activating our fullest potential over and over again. In these moments, our soul is speaking to us of our soul calling, written into our soul blueprint or our soul's callings and purpose. For some of us, this may express as a particular job or role: teacher, healer, parent, listener, artist, writer, animal lover, activist, and friend. For all of us, at the most essential level, our soul calling is to co-create with the universe a life that enables us to experience a deep joy in living and creatively express our love, our passions, and our unique essence in the world. When we hear the calling of our soul, it is up to us to respond, taking the first steps on the journey it is urging us to embark upon. Too often we make ourselves and our happiness our last priority. In doing so, we fall out of alignment with our soul and the joyful lives we came here to live and experience. Our soul's greatest desire is that we feel radiantly, blissfully alive. It wants us to live lives we love, happy, joyful, and fulfilled. It wants us to evolve and grow into more of our potential, living beyond our safety zone, reveling in the rich and vibrant experiences we encounter all day long, along the way. This is our soul's calling. This is what we came here to do. This is what we came here to be. If we have been ignoring it, sweeping it aside, at some point in our life, our soul will find a way to grab our attention. It may do this, though. Though illness, the shock of losing a loved one, or some other turbulent event in our life, perhaps the loss of a job, the breakup of a relationship, or some other dramatic change in the circumstances of our life. At such times of unrest and uncertainty, the voice of our soul rises to the surface, demanding more. More happiness, more joy, more peace, more abundance, more health, more well-being, more truth, more love, more energy, a way of living truer to ourselves a way of living that brings more pleasure and joy. This is a crossroads in our life. We can either go on doing what we've always done, getting the same results, a life lived out of alignment with our soul, the feeling that there's got to be something more, or we can make a different choice. Decide it is time to listen to the whisperings of our heart and the voice of our own soul's wisdom and step up into a new experience of life, one that allows us to expand, one that allows us to open up and experience that something more. As we open up to our soul, we embark on an ongoing awakening experience, a lifelong journey of living into more of our truth. The closer we come into alignment with the truth of our soul, the more we feel our soul express itself as a specific role or purpose. Our soul only speaks to us of our specific soul calling when we are ready. Excuse me. Its timing is perfect, for it is divinely orchestrated. We have learned to embrace our experiences and evolve through and beyond them. We are learning to love ourselves first. That is, when we do that, we offer the most to others. We are stepping up into honoring ourselves and our truth, finding our passion and following that. It is our time to live authentically and true to ourselves, to make our mark on the world in a way that only we can do, following the lead of our deepest soul longing. This is the voice of God within us. It is up to us to listen to this inner voice and honor our deepest, most soul-felt desires. The seed of longing planted within us before we were born might not seem the most logical course. It may take us in a new direction to the ones in which we thought our life was going. It will almost certainly involve courage and risk, and we may be required to leave some of our roles and the people and places we knew behind us. We'll be asked to expand ourselves and our comfort zone over and over again. We're undoubtedly going to encounter new challenges as well as new vistas as we adjust to this new way of being in the world. The desire planted within us is so strong. The vision of the potential we came here to embody so pure and true that even when we fear we may not be equal to the task. Even when we fear the reactions of others, we find the strength to proceed. As we take more steps on the path of this grandest and highest vision of ourselves, deepen into a life of co-creation with our soul, we see that we are supported. We learn to trust. The path of our soul longing is not always the easiest one we can walk, but to live true to ourselves and in alignment with our soul is the most important decision we'll ever make. It may turn our life upside down, but it also turns it around. At last, we are living authentically. At last, we are living in integrity with who we are. There is a beautiful feeling of bliss inherent to this. When what is in our soul blueprint becomes what we live and breathe, when our internal and external worlds are aligned, there is an indescribable sensation of peace, joy, and well-being. We feel at ease in the world and more ourselves than we've ever been. It's such an overwhelmingly enriching feeling that we no longer care so much for who or what others think we should be or do or say. Our soul's calling sustains and nourishes us, allowing us to grow into the fullness of our potential. We become living expressions of Source, eloquently expressing the unique essence of who we are and who we came here to be, shining our light brilliantly in the world for all to see. It takes courage, faith, strength, and perseverance to live like this. But although it may be the road less traveled, it is the one I wish to choose over and over again. I've had the good fortune to meet through my blog and elsewhere online a number of fellow journalists. And I'd like to introduce 4 of them here. These are people who are actively embracing the truth of who they came here to be and stepping up into the fullness of their potential. People who have honored the whisperings of their soul and heeded their soul's calling, turning inspiration into action, even when it means putting themselves out there on a limb. Where will my soul longing take me? Where will yours take you? Let's ease ourselves away from our comfort zone into the deep waters of our soul longing. Let's allow ourselves to be inundated with passion and inspiration. And let's follow that. The prophet, having shown their base ingratitude in forsaking God, here shows their unparalleled fickleness and folly. I will yet plead with you. Note, before God punishes sinners, He pleads with them to bring them to repentance. Note further, when much has been said of the evil of sin, still there is more to be said. When one article of the charge is made good, there is another to be urged. When we have said a great deal, still we have yet to speak on God's behalf. Job 36:2. Those that deal with sinners for their conviction must urge a variety of arguments and follow their blow. God had pleaded with their fathers and asked why they walked after vanity and became vain. Jeremiah 2, verse 5. Now He pleads with those who persisted in that vain conversation received by tradition from their fathers, and with their children's children, that is, with all that in every age tread in their steps. Let those that forsake God know that He is willing to argue the case fairly with them, that He may be justified when He speaks. He pleads that with us, which we should plead with ourselves. He shows that they acted contrary to the usage of all nations. Excuse me. Their neighbors were more firm and faithful to their false gods than they were to the true God. They were ambitious of being like nations, and yet in this they were unlike them. He challenges them to produce an instance of any nation that had changed their gods. Jeremiah 2, verses 10 and 11, or were apt to change them. Such a veneration had their gods, so good an opinion of them, and such a respect for the choices their fathers had made, that though they were gods of wood and stone, they would not change them for gods of silver and gold. No, not for the living and true God. Shall we praise them for this? We praise them not. But it may well be urged to the reproach of Israel that they, who were the only people that had no cause to change their God, were yet the only people that had changed Him. Note, men are with difficulty brought off from that religion which they have been brought up in, though ever so absurd and grossly false. The zeal and constancy of idolaters should shame Christians out of their coldness and inconstancy. He shows that they acted contrary to the dictates of common sense, and that not only change, it may sometimes be our duty and wisdom to do so, but that they changed for the worse and made a bad bargain for themselves. They parted from a God who is their glory, who made them truly glorious and every way put honor upon them, one whom they might with a humble confidence glory in as theirs, who is himself a glorious God and the glory of those who God he is. He was particularly the glory of his people Israel, for his glory had often appeared in their tabernacle. They closed with gods that could do them no good, gods that do not profit their worshippers. Idolaters change God's glory into shame. Romans 1 verse 23. And so they do their own in dishonoring him. They disgrace and disparage themselves and are enemies to their own interests. Note, whatever those turn to or who forsake God, it will never do them any good. It will flatter them and please them, but it cannot profit them. Heaven itself is here, called upon to stand amazed at the sin and folly of these apostates from God. Jeremiah 2 verses 12 and 13. Be astonished, O you heavens, at this. The earth is so universally corrupt that I will take no notice of it. But let the heavens and heavenly bodies be astonished at it. Let the sun blush to see such ingratitude and be afraid to shine upon such ungrateful wretches. Those that forsook God worship the hosts of heaven, the sun, the moon, and stars. But these, instead of being pleased with the adorations that were paid to them, were astonished and horribly afraid, and would rather have been very desolate, utterly exhausted, as the word is, and deprived of their light, than that it should have given occasion to any to worship them. Some refer to it to the angels of heaven. If they rejoice at the return of souls to God, we may suppose that they are astonished and horribly afraid at the revolt of souls from him. The meaning is that we conduct of his people towards God was such as we may well be astonished and wonder at, that ever men who pretend to reason should do a thing so very absurd. Such as we ought to have a holy indignation at as impious and a high affront to our Maker, whose honor every good man is jealous for. Such as we tremble to think of the consequences of what will be in the end hereof. Be horribly afraid to think of the wrath and curse which will be the portion of those who thus throw themselves out of God's grace and favor. Now, what is it that is to be thought of with all this horror? It is this: my people, whom I have taught and should have ruled, have committed two great evils: ingratitude and folly. They have acted contrary both to their duty and to their interests. They have affronted their God by turning their back upon him, as he were not worthy their notice. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, in whom they have an abundant and constant supply of all the comfort and relief they stand in need of, and have it freely. God is their fount. God is their fountain of life. Psalm 36:9. There is in him an all sufficiency of grace and strength. All our springs are in him, and our streams from him. To forsake him is, in effect, to deny this. He has been to us a bountiful benefactor, a fountain of living waters, overflowing, ever-flowing in the gifts of his favor. To forsake him is to refuse to acknowledge his kindness and to withhold that tribute of love and praise which his kindness calls for. They have cheated themselves. They forsook their own mercies, but it was for lying vanities. They took a great deal of pains to hew themselves out of cisterns, to dig pits or pools in the earth or rock, which they would carry to water to, or which should receive the rain. But they proved broken cisterns, false at the bottom, so that they could not hold water. When they came to quench their thirst, there they found nothing but mud, mire, and the filthy sediments of a standing lake. Such idols were to the worshippers, and such a change did those experience who turned from God to them. If we make an idol of any creature, wealth or pleasure or honor, if we place our happiness in it and promise ourselves the comfort and satisfaction in it, which are to be had in God only, if we make it our joy and love, our hope and confidence, we shall find it a cistern, which we take a great deal of pains to hew out and fill. And at the best, it will hold but a little water, and that dead and flat and soon corrupting and becoming nauseous. Nay, it is a broken cistern and cleaves in hot weather, so that the water is lost when we most need of it. Job 6, verse 15. Let us therefore with purpose of heart cleave to the Lord only, for whither else shall we go? He has the words of eternal life. Amen.